especially in women's cycling, which I work in, there's a lot of new voices, there's a lot of young voices, and there's a lot of female creators there. I think that's just a really exciting area of the sport. New voices, new perspectives, new understandings, new ways of doing things. I think that's huge in the coming years.
Welcome to Ride to Success, the podcast that takes you on a learning journey to a productive, creative, and active life through the power of the bike. In the podcast, I explore cycling's global trends, community needs, innovative business strategies, and the journeys of remarkable individuals in the world of cycling. You are listening to a limited series of recordings during Rouleur Live 2024. This limited series has 11 episodes, and in each episode, the guests are asked 4 key questions. Each of my guests has different insights into where the opportunities for success in the cycling industry lie. So make sure you to subscribe and follow so you'll get notified of new podcasts because they will be released in quick succession. In this episode, I speak with Oskar Scarsbrook, the Communications Director for Human Powered Health Cycling. We briefly chat about the evolution of women's cycling media, the importance of understanding audience dynamics, and the shift towards content creation in the cycling industry. Now, back to the show.
Hi, I'm Oskar Scarsbrook. I am the Communications Director for Human Powered Health Cycling. We're a women's world tour team and have been for the past 3 seasons. My job ranges from everything from photography to I control the website, I write, and I'm a press officer at races as well. So I like to think of myself as a little bit of a Swiss Army knife of jobs within the team and with it as roles as well.
Very good. So let's get straight into the questions. Where should cycling companies prioritize their spending to drive visibility and engagement?
So I actually think this is kind of, for me, a triple answer. And I think it starts with knowing your audience. And I think more companies should kind of put a lot of prioritization into knowing their audience and knowing who they're selling to.
Yeah.
If you do that, if you understand your audience, then you can start to think about markets and maybe markets that haven't been tapped into so much by most companies. For example, Human Powered Health as a brand is a collection of performance labs in America. The cycling team is a subsidiary of that. They also have Human Powered Health technologies, and they have recently opened up an area in India, which is a new market for Human Powered Health technologies, who specialize in AI and kind of all the technical aspects of testing and how data is used. And they've got this new market in India, this, in my opinion, quite an untapped market for cycling.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of understanding your audience, branching out to a new market, and also making the most of content creation. So whether that be video or photography, whatever you're going to choose, making the most of it and knowing what works for your audience. Okay, does video work for your audience? Prioritize there. What type of video? What type of content? What demographic are you looking for? Yeah. Then you can start to really, really make headway in terms of making a splash in this quite large, saturated space.
Very good. You touch upon the content creation. And that leads on to my next question. How is the rise of content creation, the content creator economy, transforming the traditional cycling media to now where we have social media, YouTube, podcasts? How, in your opinion, are brands adapting to the new sponsorship model?
I think brands are adapting pretty well, and teams are as well. If I took it from my context, from a cycling team, you know, I guess I would probably class myself as part of the new generation who are moving in. I age myself, I'm 27, so I'm part of that new generation of content creators who are doing these jobs. And I think, you know, I didn't work in cycling when it was pure traditional media. I have a knowledge of what it was like. Now it's changed and people have either moved with the times or haven't. There's still a place for traditional media. I think where we are now, Rouleur, I think Rouleur do it brilliantly because they've adapted their model. They're selling, you know, experience here, which is a huge thing. But also their magazine, at the core of it, they still champion great writing, great photography. And I think there always needs to be a place for that. But in terms of, from my perspective with teams, there's been a huge shift and what teams prioritize on. You know, I was at the Spring Classics this year and we were in a hotel with a team who brought about 9 members of staff just for content creation.
Right.
And
amazing.
That was, to me, it was quite eye-opening as this is kind of the future because there were basically 3 photographers out there there's a mechanic working on a bike in the car park, 3 photographers out there taking photos of him and videoing him. Then you had like 3 blokes in this concourse area of the hotel live editing, and this bloke who was there just ferrying like cards back and forth, batteries back and forth, all plugged up into this network. And I kind of thought to myself, wow, this team's really, and this team had really gone in for that side of things. And that was quite eye-opening to how, people are adapting to this new kind of market and this new world.
Yeah, I mean, it's only fair because that's where the attention is going. That's where people are listening, paying attention to. With that in mind, I wanted to focus on what for you are the tailwinds and the headwinds of the cycling industry in the next 5 years. Like, just if you give me 1 or 2 tailwinds and headwinds.
I think the tailwinds, from my perspective of like being at races, I think some of the tailwinds are access to that race. I do think the bigger race organizations are starting to understand the IP that they have and the power of the IP that they have. So everything's going a bit more in-house, which in my opinion puts a little bit of a break on like outside media being involved or trying to get what they need. So I feel that's a little bit of a tailwind. In terms of headwinds, goes back to my previous answer, especially in women's cycling, which I work in. There's a lot of new voices, there's a lot of young voices, and there's a lot of female creators there. I think that's just a really exciting area of the sport. New voices, new perspectives, new understandings, new ways of doing things. I think that's a huge headwind in the coming years. And I think that brands need to tap into that and see that way of doing things.
Very good. So with that, I wanted to have go to a more personal question. What is the one thing that for you that you do every day that enables you to, be the best version of yourself, that perform at your best? What is it for you?
Mine's like it's kind of a dorky, simple answer, but I always drink a cup of tea in the morning and watch an episode of The Simpsons whilst I'm doing it. Nothing better than a good cup of Yorkshire tea. Yorkshire tea, I take a little box of Yorkshire tea with me to every race. There's a box of Yorkshire tea on our Team Swan truck, and I always have a cup of Yorkshire in the morning and watch an episode of The Simpsons. And it just sets you up. Like, your day can't be bad off that. Any day, if I'm working at home or if I'm working at a race, it's just a little bit of home. You bring a little bit of home with yourself if you've got a cup of Yorkshire tea.
Very good. Very good. Sorry, that's a brilliant question.
Yeah, it's quite simple.
I mean, thanks for sharing that. So I have one question that was left for you. If you have 3 people that you could choose to go on a ride with, dead or alive, who would they be?
Dead or alive? Gosh, there's a quick thinking. I mean, straight away, my cycling hero is Chris Hoy, so immediately him, love the man. So that's kind of obvious. They have to be like cyclists.
No, I said no.
Okay.
Anyone.
Chris Hoy would be there. I don't know how good she is as a rider, but Dame Kelly Holmes is like my heroine, female sports hero.
Very good.
So she's got to be on that ride. That's 2 multi-Olympic gold medalists. So I have to balance it out with someone. Yeah, I like those 2. And the photographer Lee Miller. Watched a film about Lee Miller. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of learning about Lee Miller when I was in uni. Because he was like a reportage photographer, and I was very inspired. I was very inspired at university by reportage photography. I always kind of thought that I wanted to be a war photographer. At a moment, I think everyone goes through this moment if they're like a photographer who also is a journalist. When they're young, they kind of think, "I'm a war photographer." Then you're like, it was a bit dangerous. I love her work and I love her story. And so Lee Miller would be there as well. That's a really, really random one to be putting with Dame Kelly Holmes and Sir Chris Hoy. So might be entertaining.
I mean, it's your fantasy, so it will work for sure. Okay, as part of the podcast tradition, everyone leaves a question to my next guest. What would be your question?
My question is, as someone who works in women's cycling, and it's been a great year in professional women's cycling, what was your favourite moment from the 2024 season in women's cycling?
Oskar, brilliant. Thank you for taking your time and sharing your insights.
Cheers, man.
Thank you for listening to this quick interview. I'm your host, Pedro Couto Lopez. You can find me under my own name on LinkedIn. You can find Ride to Success on all socials. And let me know if you like this format of shorter, snappier interviews with guests within the cycling industry. And if you like the show, please give us a review. Follow helps us to create better content, and bring more guests to the podcast. Make sure you tune in to the next episode, which will be released shortly. Thank you for listening.